Hey gang, I'm back with another review, but this time, as opposed to me making a car ride pilgrimage out to the cinema, I've once again decided to stay at home in the comfy confines of my apartment and check out a movie that I wasn't afforded the opportunity to see in a theater here in Saskatoon, mostly because it didn't actually play in any theaters in Saskatoon. And of course, I am talking about Elstree, 1976.
I kind of thought it was a low-budget film to begin with.
It was just like another job, except you look weird.
Let's stop in with George Lucas. He said, "Welcome aboard. It's not a big role, but I think you'll have some fun."
Which is this Kickstarter-funded documentary about the making of the very first Star Wars film from 1977, but it also introduces a lot of the key players and personnel behind the scenes that played a lot of let's say bit characters who were extras in the film and so forth. So
I had lunch with Alec Guinness and we used to go and sort of practice the fight together like kids fight in the back garden.
And I was like, look at this, what's going on?
I've been very interested to see this documentary since I heard about its inception and its production. It was in a limited release, as far as I recall, in the early summer film season months. It's finally out on Canadian Netflix, so I'm going to screen this bad boy and I'll be back with a review. Hey gang, I just finished watching the documentary Elstree 1976. Rather compellingly, there is a moment in the film where one of the interview subject matter states that 25% of the world's population has seen Star Wars, the original 1977, A New Hope, at least once. Found that comment somewhat revealing yet oddly ironic, because I think 100% of people that watch Elstree 1976 will probably come out of it learning very little or anything revelatory about the making of such an iconic film. I guess it was sort of advertised as a film about the making of Star Wars, but I guess it's really more ostensibly about looking at a lot of the smaller, like I said, bit players and extras who were, in their own unique way, sort of integral to the making of the film.
I really didn't have that driving ambition to succeed. Maybe that's where I've been going wrong.
Just to give you a little bit of background, Elstree Studios was the location for the shooting of not only the first Star Wars, but the subsequent two sequels through the 70s and 80s. And it's located in London, and it housed like 7 huge sound stages. They also had like places for like costume, construction, film processing departments, you name it. And last time I read, the whole complex was razed. It's now the site of a supermarket. I could be wrong on that. But it was during 1976 where the documentary takes its kind of partial title from, where Star Wars was shot and filmed and produced. And the entire documentary is really about interviewing the extra actors and a lot of the actors who were behind makeup or behind helmets and masks that superficially, I guess, had a very insignificant part in the actual story of the first Star Wars movie. Some of them didn't even have lines of dialogue, and some of them had blink or you'll miss them appearances in the film, but nevertheless they're interviewed here.
Took the afternoon off, up to Pinewood Studios, a knock on the door. So within a week, I got a call to be in Star Wars.
4 decades later, they decide to comment on their participation in the film, as well as working with George Lucas and the process of making Star Wars.
It's a piece of us, or it's a piece of, you know, what somebody's life is.
I guess on one little positive, the film has a very interesting cross-section of interview subjects. Of course, you get people being interviewed like David Prowse, who was the physical embodiment of Darth Vader.
We used to say to George, you know, what are we going to do about the dialogue, because everything I'm saying is coming through the mask.
You also get guys like Jeremy Bulloch, who played Boba Fett.
Jeremy's got a bucket on his head. What's that about?
Well, that's purely because it's Boba Fett. I can't say any more than that. It's not my fault.
And then, of course, you get a lot of smaller players in the first Star Wars film. You get the actor who played Biggs Darklighter, who had his role severely cut. You also have interviews with the actor who infamously he played the stormtrooper who accidentally banged his head on the blast door. So he was interviewed. They also interviewed the guy who played Greedo and what that whole process of shooting that scene with Harrison Ford was like. There is some interesting highlights in the film. I like some of the personal anecdotes. One particular actor comments about how he wasn't really fully prepared to play his X-Wing pilot during the day of shooting. So George Lucas finally decided to just have him read his lines off of both of his knees. And it really makes watching that scene where the actor is in now hard to watch, because you can just constantly see him looking like this on his lap for lines. And it's like little details like that, I guess you can say, were revelatory. Like, I didn't know that at all about the that little behind the scenes tidbit about the making of the first Star Wars film. But I gotta say, I mean, as a documentary, like documentaries for me, they have to do one of two things. They either have to introduce me to a subject matter that I know nothing about and make them compelling and interesting, or they have to deal with a subject matter that I am very familiar with and approach it with a fresh new perspective and provide for me a lot of new refreshing details that I didn't know about. I like documentaries that allow for me the processing of new information about the subject matter. And like Elstree 1976, I think as a documentary, it's kind of a failure. No! Like, it didn't really delve deep into the making of Star Wars. I mean, for a film that has the word Elstree in its title, it really doesn't talk about the studio in any real compelling manner. It's also ultimately telling that for a documentary that was really trying to sell itself as a documentary about some of the bit players in Star Wars, the title Star Wars is not uttered once by anyone until like 20-25 minutes into the documentary. The documentary gets off to a very slow start. I think there's ultimately another question that has to be posed, and I'm going to be very delicate by posing it. Are the personalities that are presented in this documentary worthy of a near 2-hour documentary, and are their stories really intriguing, and are they worth listening to? I'd have to say I'm leaning more towards no. Some of the participants that are interviewed, I mean, their appearance in the first Star Wars movie would barely approximate like a cameo part. Some of them are in the background of shots, and like the documentary really goes out of its way to like zoom in and freeze on the actors in shots, because quite frankly, if it just let the scene play out, you would never notice these people in the scenes at all. And the other interesting thing is how it sort of approaches how even these real bit players still have do convention circuits and have people waiting in line for 30 to 60 minutes to get their autographs for someone who played faceless Rebel Guard number 5. Like it's really quite baffling.
The only thing that really got me out of this house was really going doing this convention.
He said, I'll pay you £300. Well, doing what? He said, signing autographs. I said, are you for real?
I guess if you're expecting a definitive behind-the-scenes documentary about the making of the first Star Wars film, this is really not the documentary for you. I guess the one big takeaway from this documentary is I think it's intimate. Like you learn a lot about the intimate details of these actors and actresses' lives and what they're doing now.
Fans all over the world are generally just brilliant.
Come on, some of them are right off the wall.
The little bit, Mr. Bullock, that you made a slight look. I said, yes, I was waiting for lunch.
What's interesting too is that none of the actors had any idea whatsoever how fundamentally huge Star Wars would become. Like, none of them thought it would become the defining pop culture mythology of the 20th century going forward. Many of them thought it was just this shoddy, low-budget film. Some even commented that they thought it was barely appropriate to be made for a TV movie of the week, which is very funny. I guess I just wanted more insights into the making of Star Wars. I wanted to know what these actors thought of George Lucas. I wanted to know what they thought of being in the costume. I wanted a bit more of what they thought it was like to have their scenes cut. And some of the actors in question do comment on that.
Not everything's going to stay in the film.
And I was quite angry and hurt.
It was just a nightmare.
I think I just needed more details more behind the scenes details to really flesh this documentary out in a compelling manner. The stories of all the subject matter's lives, and it also kind of explores the microcosm of fandoms and how fan communities put these really bit players on a pedestal of hero worship. I think that's fascinating, and I think that's another underwhelming part of the documentary. It really doesn't hone in on that. I guess as a piece of nostalgia, Elstree 1976, it's a curiosity piece. It's interesting, but it offers, regretfully, very little compelling new information about Star Wars, about the making of the film, and really about how it fundamentally altered not only all of the actors, from the bit extra players to the major actors, but also how it changed the movies as a whole. I think in that capacity, the documentary is a real letdown. Some of the interview subjects, like David Prowse, for instance, and again, I'll be delicate by saying this, I think he seems to put himself on maybe a bit too high of a pedestal. He is kind of a controversial figure in Star Wars, and at one point he said, I did all the acting for Darth Vader.
I'd like to be able to cash in on this. Like, I want people to know that it was me that did all the acting. I mean, I did all the acting and I did all the dialogue.
I guess you could technically say that's true. He was the physical embodiment of Darth Vader, but ultimately it was really James Earl Jones and his voiceover that really fundamentally made that character whom he was.
Rather than fly me all the way over from London to Hollywood just to overdub half a dozen lines or whatever, however much I had. And unfortunately for me, they couldn't have picked a better actor to overdub my lines than James Earl Jones.
I guess there's a whole other interesting, sub-theme to the documentary about the fact that a lot of these actors are profiting off of their participation in Star Wars. And again, it's sort of very superficially looked at, but not in a really, like I said, revelatory manner. Ultimately, I find this documentary even really hard to recommend, even for die-hard Star Wars fans. At nearly 2 hours, I was starting to get bored by it within about the first 20 to 30 minutes, and by about the 90-minute mark, I was ready to check out. So I think it's a very noble-minded documentary. I think it has interesting stories to tell, and I really like the personalities in the film. But as a documentary, it just didn't work for me, and it was kind of a rather large disappointment, especially coming from the fact that I am a gigantic Star Wars fan, and I'm always looking to learn something new about the film series that I hold so dear to my heart. And unfortunately, I just didn't get it with this documentary. So there you have it. There's my review of Elstree 1976. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of the film. Also, let me know in the comments what your favorite Star Wars films are, or what your favorite documentaries are about the making of films. Once again, thank you very much for watching. If you could like this video, I would appreciate it. If you could subscribe to my channel, that would mean the world to me. May the Force be with you, and I'll see you at the movies, everybody.
Everything's perfectly all right now. We're fine. We're all fine here now. Thank you. How are you?